On this week's episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast, we are joined by Kyle Fisher of the band No Innocent Victim. This was an incredible set that we saw at Furnace Fest, and we were so grateful to Kyle that he took a few minutes to jump on with us. It was really fun learning about the band's history, his history, and hearing some of the crazy stories that they had during their times touring. Check it out and go check out No Innocent Victim. They are going to be playing a couple of shows in California here in November, and go out and support. For now, let's open this pit up.
Hey, thanks everyone for jumping on to this week's episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast. I'm Kyle. I'm here with Trevor, and we are super fortunate to have Kyle Fisher from the band No Innocent Victim jump on with us. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and just to start out, I read that it's scientifically proven that people named Kyle are like statistically cooler and more intelligent than people, especially ones named Trevor.
It's funny, man. I growing up, I didn't know another Kyle until I was out of high school. I thought it was the weirdest name in the world. And like even now, like I'm just like I sometimes you're like think about a word in your head over and over again. Just like I listen to my name and I'm like, oh man, I can't stand my name. But it's
dude, cool. I feel the same way actually. Sometimes just saying Kyle just like sounds weird to me.
It's like you drink Monster Energy drinks and stuff.
Right? Yeah. I got my True Religion jeans on and
yeah. And then of course every year that city of Texas, Kyle, Texas, they posted on Instagram, and I have 1 million people go, you got to go to the meeting of Kyle's in Kyle, Texas.
Yep. So I was in Austin a week before they did the festival, or I would have gone. It was like, I want to be a part of that. And I was going to wear like a name tag that said like, my name's Kyle, but just because like everyone there is Kyle.
That's fun.
So, all right, Trevor, we talk to you later, man. This is a meeting of Kyle's.
Yeah.
So.
No, you guys are good. I'll just sit here and listen.
Give it to the cool guys.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, thank you for jumping on. Big fans of the band.
Thank you.
Everything you guys do, everything you stand for, big fans of it. We were at Furnace Fest, and so catching your guys' set was a huge pleasure for us. We're very lucky to do that. So
thank you, man. We're honored people still even care about us, man. Really, to be honest with you, it's kind of cool. To be honest.
Well, it's what was cool about Furnace Fest is like we're not, me and Trevor are not like the youngest ones there. We're not the oldest ones there. We were kind of like in the middle, it felt like. But seeing you guys, it was like, no offense, but it brought out like a different generation of crowd, which is cool because like those are the guys that I grew up with watching and seeing and like really respecting that helped me grow into the scene as well. So
it was definitely a good mix of like the older and newer generation there. It was pretty cool. Like we had people come up to our booth and like father son, like the son's probably, I don't know, 17, 18 years old. And he's like, I grew up on you guys. My dad listened to you all the time. So it's like a whole different generation, it's kind of cool. So, but it was, it's fun to see, man. And then we did have, kind of a lot of like, younger kids like, oh, I've been listening to you guys for the last 5 years, or a couple years, so it's cool, man. It's cool to know that, and that's music, I mean, sometimes music, I mean, there's no generation to it, I mean, obviously there's people who there's nostalgia and then there's, but if it's good music that people like, it spans generations,
So we were talking about this and we moshed a decent amount while we were out there, but you guys probably had the most violent pit that we were in during Furnace Fest.
That's cool.
And so, and listen, for anyone who's not part of the scene, which everyone here who typically is listening to us, all 10 of them are part of the scene. But every now and again, when you say it was the most violent thing, they're like, oh, that's a bad thing. No, it was the best thing, right? It was the crowd that we were used to. It was the type of pit that we grew up with, that we cut our teeth on. It was a lot of fun because there was a lot of like younger pits and stuff like that just, it doesn't feel the same. But when you guys were playing, it was a very, what's the word? Like comfortable feeling. Cause it's like, oh, I know how to handle this one.
Yeah. To be honest with you, man, like I completely blacked out. We started the set and literally what felt like 5 minutes. I'm already looking down at the set list going, we're already on the last song. It was kind of crazy. I mean, I had a lot of, I mean, we played a show in 2018 with Dogwood in San Diego. So that was 6 years ago. But before that, the band got back together. They did the To Burn Again record. But that's the first time I've played in front of like that kind of crowd since Furnace Fest 2002. So it'd been 22
Wow.
years. It'd been 22 years for me. So like I have to admit I had a little bit of anxiety and sleepless nights and wondering and thinking about it, and all that stuff. But I look back, tons of video. I'm looking at Instagram and people posting stuff, and it looked awesome. I was really kind of worried about it, but
Yeah.
it seemed like it was pretty good.
So how did that like come about? I mean, I assume you guys, it seems like a pretty tight knit group. This is the first time we've been to Furnace Fest, but everyone we've talked to and bands that have played there, it's a very tight knit group. People know each other. You just said you played back in like 2002. How did this one come around? Were you guys like trying to be a part of it? Did they reach out to you?
So they reached out to us. They've reached out to us the last 3 years, and they actually reached out to Davey Quiggle, who was in the last lineup of the band. He passed it off to me because he didn't want anything to do with it. And so I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. So this is like 2022. And I reached out to the guys. I was like, oh, it'd be kind of cool. And everyone was just kind of like, nah, it's too far out. I don't know what I'm doing. We're busy, blah, blah, blah. So I emailed them back. I can't remember. I think it was Ryan Luther was the one who contacted us all the time. I said, I don't think it's going to happen. But don't, forget about us next year. There might be a chance next year, So then you reached out 2023. Same thing. I reached out to all the guys. I think Jason Moody was down to do it, but the guitar play, it was kind of chaotic. So then he reached out this year, and I was kind of just like, man, I hope everyone wants to do it, And they did. Yeah, Corey did. We reached out to Corey first. Corey's like, no, I knew he wouldn't. Tim, I know Tim's real busy with his work and everything, but Tim was like, yeah, we'll do it. And then Jason Dunn, the drummer, because he lives in Hawaii now.
Oh, dang.
So, yeah. So he's been in Hawaii for, I think, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. Probably, time flies, probably even 10. I don't know. He was like, I knew he was going to be the biggest hurdle. And so we reached out to him, and he thought about it, and he was like, yeah, I'm in. And so we're like, cool, let's do this. So I email him back, hey, we're in, and then we do all the negotiating and everything like that. And so it was going to be everyone that was in the picture. It was pretty much the tipping the scales lineup. And so probably 2.5, 3 months before Furnace Fest, we were planning on getting practices in because Jason, we had to schedule it all because Jason lives in Hawaii.
Yeah.
We're scattered all over the place. I'm in, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of like San Bernardino County.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in a little town in San Bernardino County. Jason Moody lives down in Escondido, which is North San Diego County. And then Tim lives in Orange County. So we're kind of scattered a little bit, but then, getting Jason out here to practice to try to figure it out was going to be kind of difficult. So we were planning it out. I guess he got on his kit at home, and he's been having back issues for like the last 5 years. And he got on his kit, got halfway through the set, and I guess his legs were going numb and his back was killing him. And so he calls Jason Moody up, and he's like, I can't do it. And we're like 2.5 months from Furnace Fest, right? And we're just like, oh man, dude, like, we got a lot riding right now, And so, they've already announced it. How do we find a drummer that's going to fit with us? It's going to do our thing. And Jason Dunn told Jason Moody, he said, if there's anybody that I would want to take my spot to be Jim Chaffin from The Blame Crucified. And so I didn't know, but I think he knew that The Blame were already going to be out there because the Living Sacrifice played that show on Thursday night with The Blame.
Yeah.
So Jim was already going to be out there. So we reached Jim. Jim was on board. It was cool. Did some practices and it worked out. So that's kind of how.
That's awesome.
That's kind of how Furnace Fest went about. But it was cool. It worked out perfect. It was cool.
So what's it like coming back, I guess, after, I mean, like you said, you hadn't played in a while. What's it? I mean, I've never had an experience like that where I've done something for so long and then quit doing it. And then to like step back in that light and, play these songs that you guys grew up with, right? Like you grew up to, how does that feel?
It felt really cool. The coolest thing about it is, I've been Known as a Victim, when Known as a Victim did their last shows in 2002, we had this thing where it was like, we're not going to do any cheesy reunions. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do any. We're not. This is it.
Yeah.
And so in 2002, when we played that last show at the showcase, and then we did that last show at the showcase wasn't actually our last shows. It was our last. I can't even say American soil, but we did 4 shows in Puerto Rico, like a couple weeks after that. So, but that showcase show with Hatebreed, Terror, Disciple, I think, who else was on that? Anyways, that was like our last show. And so when the band broke up, I'm sitting here, I'm 24, 25 years old. I've spent my late teens, early 20s playing in a band.
Yeah.
All my friends got their careers. They're married. They've got houses. And here I am, 24, 25 years old with like the best experiences of my life. But I'm sitting here going, I need to figure something out, And so I ended up, I'm going to answer your question. I'm just giving you the forefront. So anyways, long story short, I started painting. It was either go to college and not know what I'm going to do or learn a trade. I had friends that were painters. I started painting, met my wife, started having kids. We got married first, started having kids. And then I just been, for 20 years, just a dad and I still listen to hardcore. I'd still go to shows. I've taken my kids to shows, I still would do that stuff. I wasn't like, I was just like, I'm done with that,
Right.
And then Known as a Victim got back together without me, which is another story. We can get back to that later. But we did that 2018 show, which is really cool. My kids didn't get to go to that because it was at Brick by Brick, which is Jordan from As They Lay Dying's Club in San Diego. And it's 21 and over.
Yeah.
And so my kids, I didn't think my kids would go to that after the fact. Jordan's like, oh, dude, I would have let him come in, man. I'm like, thanks. We did that show. So the coolest thing about doing something like that after all those years was my 2 worlds colliding. My kids knew that I was in the band. My wife saw me play with the band. She's seen me before. She saw me back then. But my kids had never seen that. They knew that I was in a band. They knew I was, I did that stuff. But the coolest thing about actually coming back and doing it for me was that, like my kids were like pumped, they got this, they're up on, just for them to experience all of Furnace Fest too, like going and seeing the bands and hanging out and, doing all that stuff, so it was pretty, that was for me, like I said, I had anxiety. It was nerve wracking kind of, but really when I got up on stage, it was almost like riding a bike.
Yeah.
It was just kind of second nature. Plus I've played my bass. I've played my bass off and on since then. I played on the worship team of my church for a while. And so it wasn't like I hadn't picked up a bass guitar in 22 years, so I'd still played and stuff like that, but it wasn't anything like that, I guess you could say. Yeah.
So what did your kids think of it?
Well, they were pumped.
They were pumped.
It was awesome.
Good. Did they, like you said, I'm sure you've talked to them about it and they've, probably had some idea, but was it like?
Yeah, I think it was pretty funny. I was sitting at the merch booth and my son, he's 18. He was sitting there with me and a guy came up to the merch booth and he's like, I flew all the way from Sweden just to see you guys, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome, man. And my son's just sitting there looking at me going, oh, who are you? So like that kind of stuff was cool. It's like, hey man, your dad used to do this, this is what he used to do. We toured Europe. We did all this stuff, we've been all over the country, so, I think they knew that, but it wasn't something that they I don't think grasped until they saw it, which was kind of cool, I mean, I don't think I'm a rock star or anything, but it was just like, them seeing that where it's like, and it was, like I said, my two worlds colliding, where it's like for all their life, they just know me as dad and taking them to baseball practices and picking them up from school and, all that stuff. And now it's like, it's just this, they get to see this whole different part of what used to be, so.
So let's talk about that then. So you joined the band at what, 18 roughly?
I think I just turned 19. I think I just turned 19.
Okay.
Yeah, I just turned 19. I was in a band before called Altered Mission. I don't know, no one's probably ever heard of them, but the funny thing is I was in that band. That's how I knew those dudes from No Innocent Victim, because we used to throw shows at our church. It's called Oasis, and it actually was in our area, like the Inland Empire. It was we threw shows there, and they're awesome shows. And we would have Christian bands, non-Christian bands. I mean, all kinds of different bands played there, and that's how I met those dudes from No Innocent Victim, because we had a show. And so I played in that band. Actually, Derek Youngsma, the drummer for Bleeding Through, he played in that band. And it was my brother. My brother was a guitar player, and then Dave Foy sang, and then Jason Riley played guitar. We were just young Christian dudes. We, all of us kind of came out of the hardcore scene. Like we used to go to hardcore shows, and that's actually how I met Jason Dunn. It was just hardcore shows, before he wasn't even in No Innocent Victim, like Madball would come play at the Showcase Theater, and I'd see him there, or I remember, Warzone came and played at the Showcase. And I would run into Jason Dunn and Tommy Engler there. And so that's kind of how we just kind of knew each other, was like hardcore stuff. Then fast forward, Jason Dunn joins No Innocent Victim, along with Judd, because that was the No Compromise record. And then No Compromise came out, and I think it wasn't too long after No Compromise came out that I joined the band, because I think No Compromise came out in 97, and I think I joined in 98. So yeah, I was 19 because I was born in yeah. So and they wanted to tour. They wanted to start touring, and I guess Judd couldn't tour. I don't know whether it was with his job or whatever the reason was, but that's kind of how they asked me to, and I was dumbfounded. I was like, these guys want me to play a notice. I'm just some stupid kid, like that plays in some crappy hardcore band that they played with a couple times, but it was super cool. And I was young, I was not fresh out of high school. I was probably a year and a half, 2 years out of high school. And same thing. I was kind of, what am I going to do with my life? And then they called me, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah.
So were they already signed to Victory, or were you guys touring and going, and then you signed to Victory?
Yeah. So we toured. So No Compromise came out on Rescue Records. The first two records were on Rescue Records, which is the guys from POD. I think it's POD's first couple records were on Rescue. They were a San Diego label. I want to say that it's Sonny's uncle's label or something like that. I wasn't really a part of that, so I don't know 100%, but I think it's Sonny's uncle. It's either Sonny or Wolf's uncle, his record label. And so No Compromise came out. I joined the band, and then we just toured. We toured that record like crazy because Judd couldn't. And so when I first joined the band, 98, that's when we did that first tour with Disciple. That's how we got to know those dudes. And I think that was 98. We did that tour, the US tour with Disciple. And that was a crazy, that was the tribulation tour, man. That was like, if anything could go wrong, it went wrong on that tour. So I think the first day of that tour, Junior, the guitar player, broke his foot, so he couldn't keep going. That's how Neil Hartman joined the band. So and it was begging Neil, because they were a 5-piece, and they had guitar parts where it had to be a 5-piece, and we had this whole entire American tour booked. So we talked Neil into going. Neil jumped on. I think the first shows were up their way because I think we went out, played a couple shows, met them in Erie, and then we kind of went down the East Coast, Florida, and then back down. And so Junior broke his foot. Um, and then we were in like, I don't know, Carolinas or Virginia or something. Alfred, the bass player, got poison sumac. And it's like poison ivy, but it's like worse. I don't know where he got it or how he got it. So they were quarantining him in the van, and then it ended up spreading to Davey's feet. Davey got it on his feet. They finally got cured from that.
That's the most random thing.
Dude, it was crazy. The entire tour was insane. We get to Florida. They park their van on an anthill. They were playing the show. They get back from the show. Their entire van is covered in, it was like a horror movie covered in Then we're coming down south. We get to Louisiana. We're in New Orleans. We have a show in New Orleans. And our roadie at the time, Tommy Engler, where you get the famous CEB, the Crazy Engler Brothers from, he was our roadie. And I think it was him, Dan Quiggle from Disciple, and I think it was Neil. The three of them were we were staying at somebody's house, and the three of them wanted to just go walk around and see New Orleans. And Neil and Dan come back and they say, Tommy's just been arrested. And we're like, what? And so we go down to the police station. We're trying to find out what's going on. Well, actually, we knew what was going on. Davey told a story. I guess they got stopped by cops and they're asking them what they're doing. And they're like, oh, we're here, like our bands are on tour, blah, blah, blah. He goes, well, I guess the cop was like, well, what do you do in the band? Dan's like, I'm the singer. Neil goes, I'm the guitar player. And then Tommy goes, I'm the roadie. And the cop goes, let me see your IDs. And, there's two Pennsylvania IDs and a California ID. And I don't know if that made the cop suspicious. I don't know what it was. But they started throwing all these things on him, saying that they, oh, we saw you're looting. And they're like, we're not looting. We're walking down the street. And they're like, oh, we saw you peeing in public. And Tommy's like, what are you talking about? They end up arresting him for peeing in public, which he wasn't doing. They throw him in New Orleans County Jail, which is like, from what I understand, is the roughest. I mean, it's rough. And here's this 6 foot skinny dude that probably weighs 110 pounds soaking wet. I mean, Tommy's a tough guy. Don't get me wrong. He could hold his own. They wouldn't let us bail him out, and it was a Friday, and we had a show I think in Georgia the next day, and so we had to leave him there. We had to leave him there, and we're calling his parents back home like, hey, you guys need to figure this out. Like the bail was like, they put the bail at like something stupid like $5,000. There's like, you either pay us $5,000 or he's staying the weekend in jail. So we were like at a crossroads, like, what do we do? Do we just leave? There's nothing we can do here. So we decided we were going to leave him there. So, because there was nothing we could do. They said either give us $5,000 or he'll get released on Monday. Well, the good thing is we had a day off from Georgia, and I think our next shows were somewhere in Texas. So we had a day off that Monday. So we had to drive all the way back down to New Orleans, pick him up from jail, and go to Texas. So then that happened. And then, the Disciple guys had never been to California before, and they're super excited. And they're like, they're thinking it's, movie stars and beaches and stuff and all this stuff. And so we're on the home stretch to California, and we're 20 minutes from my house, pulling up because we had some days off in California where they were just going to hang out. We had some shows booked and everything in California, and their van transmission just completely blows out 20 minutes from my house. And so that tour was awesome because we bonded with those guys. Like there's probably not another band. I mean, you could tell just by, we did side project bands with them. We did all that stuff, but that tour, we definitely bonded. It was a horrible tour, but it was an awesome tour at the same time.
Yeah,
man, talk about cutting your teeth for sure. Yeah. So you just toured this all. You guys signed a Victory. How did the Victory stuff all come together and play out for you guys? Because we have all heard horror stories about Victory, right? So we heard about them too. So
98, that Disciple tour, we did a couple more tours. We were on the road a lot. I mean, we were road dogs. I think we would go a month on the road, be home for a month, go back on the road for a month. And we were gone probably 6 months out of the year. We were touring No Compromise. We were sending No Compromise to labels. We wanted to get on a secular label. We didn't want to be on a Christian. We didn't, I think, Tooth and Nail wanted us, all that stuff, all these, and since I've been in the band, and I know even before, like our heart was the hardcore scene, and we wanted to be a hardcore. We wanted to be a hardcore band in the hardcore scene that got respect, and we showed respect too. We wanted to be the peers, and so that was our goal. We we're like, we can't do that if we're on Tooth and Nail. We have, so I think our options, the three, we had a 3-label goal. It was Blackout Records, Triple Crown, and Victory. And Victory was number 1. And so we would, we mailed the No Compromise CD to all the labels, intro letters, all that stuff. And I think, if I remember right, I think Blackout was interested, but we were still shooting for Victory. And Clint, who works for Victory, he was like second in command to Tony. I'm pretty sure he saw us play on one of our tours. He got the CD. He really loved us. And Clint was the driving force to got us signed on Victory. Like, he was a fan. He saw us play, and so we did another tour, and we ended up playing the Fireside Bowl in Chicago. Tony came out, saw us play. I think he was at the bar most of the time, but he saw us play and wanted us. So that's how that happened. So we were pumped. We were like, we heard the horror stories. I think at that time, Earth Crisis was suing them for overseas sales or something like that. Like, I think they pressed CDs in the Philippines or something that weren't getting counted as sales. It was a crazy story, But for us, we were just like, it was never really about the money for us ever. So for us, we were like, that's a shoe-in, like, that's getting signed to Victory is going to be kind of what seals the deal and puts us, gives us some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like, fight in the game kind of,
Sure.
Because they just released, Satisfaction record, the Hatebreed record, I think they put that Warzone record out right before us. So that's just like, those are our peers, those are the dudes that we want to be in the same bucket with, and so that's how that happened. But Clint played the biggest role in that. I think Tony could probably take it or leave it. He probably thought Christian band, whatever, but Clint was the driving force in that. And I still talk to Clint. Clint's, even to this day, just not really, but on social media and stuff, we hit each other up and like that. So, he's still a fan and really good dude.
Cool.
Yeah. So then we recorded the Flesh and Blood record, recorded it at Barry Pointer Studio out in Little Rock. It's the same place that Living Sacrifice just did the Reborn record there. And we were blown away by that, just the, sound of it and everything.
Yeah.
So we recorded that. We spent 2 weeks in Little Rock recording Flesh and Blood. Barry Pointer was awesome. Little tiny studio. It was funny. He had you hear that Reborn record and you're like, this is like a professional, awesome studio somewhere downtown somewhere or something like that. And it's literally in a probably 500 square foot back house behind his house, and it's like super cramped. There's literally just a control room and then like a tiny little room on the side of it, So that's where we recorded Flesh and Blood. So before that, we were writing songs for Flesh and Blood and we were playing them on those tours prior. And then, recorded Flesh and Blood. That got put out. And then after that release is when we just kind of really went hard. We were going hard. Like I said, we were on the road every other month at least.
Yeah.
And started getting some really good looks, playing with really good bands. Agnostic Front took us out. That was like, to me, that was, being a hardcore kid my whole life. And just, I mean, if we would have just played one show with them, I'd have been like, oh, this is awesome, like, but those dudes, I guess those dudes were getting ready to do US tour, and they were hitting up labels like, hey, we need support, and they were, just having labels just, oh, how about this band? How about this band? And I think they, if I remember right, like this is 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
20, this is almost 20. This was 25 years ago. 1999 is when we did. It's been 25 years. I think there was another Victory band and they couldn't do it, if I remember right. But I take that back. The U.S. tour, Agnostic Front wanted us for the U.S. tour. They picked us for the U.S. tour, so we were like super pumped, And then right after the U.S. tour, I think Shutdown was supposed to go with them to Europe for that Unity Fest tour, and that tour, the U.S. tour ended, and then in 2 weeks they were flying out to Europe. It was going to be Agnostic Front. I'm pretty sure it was Shutdown, U.S. Bombs. Well, a week before our U.S. tour ended with them, Shutdown had to drop out for some reason. And we had gotten to know these AF guys pretty good. Like, they loved us. We were, like, it was fun,
Yeah.
And so they're like, you guys want to go to Europe with us? And we're just sitting there going, dude, like, like, yeah, man, we want to go to Europe with you guys, And so, and it was crazy because we literally we got home from that tour and we had 2 weeks to get visas, plane tickets, and everything to get us to go to Europe. And the only horror story I have with Tony Brummel from Victory was that. So we're sitting here going, hey, can we get some support? Like, we just put out this record. We're working hard. We're touring it. It's selling. And can you front us the money to get us to Europe? And it was kind of crazy too, because Billy Milano from SOD was AF's tour manager. And, Billy Milano, he's a legend too. And so yeah. I'm talking to Billy Milano on the phone, on Roger's cell phone, it was super, it was just super surreal, and I'm sitting here going, dude, I'm talking to Billy Milano on Roger Murray's cell phone, talking about going to Europe, and so it was funny because Billy's like, oh, those guys, Tony's not gonna front you the money, like, that's bull crap, blah, 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 this and that. And so then I'm going back and forth, and Tony told Billy, because at that time AF was on Epitaph, and Tony told Billy, he goes, I'm not the kind of label that has an offspring kind of money to just send bands to Europe. We're just sitting here going, like, bro, like, we'll pay it back, just like help us out, because I mean, we probably could have paid for it from band funds, but we would have been broke,
Yeah.
Right.
And so we ended up going. We literally did it for free because Tony ended up fronting us the airfare. We had to split the bus with the three bands, so the cost of the bus, all the backline, all that stuff. So it was expensive, but we had to take our guarantee every night, and I think we ended up having to cut into some of our merch to pay Tony back for that tour. And I'm sitting thinking, like, dude, like, we're selling records, man. Like, you're getting your money back.
Right.
Like, we're out here busting our butts, trying to sell records for you. And you're, it was that's my only complaint that I have with Tony. Cause to be honest with you, I saw the dude one time, the entire time.
Yeah.
I saw the dude and he was sitting at the bar. I didn't even think he was going to watch us, because the whole time at that show, he was just sitting at the bar. You guys have probably never been to the Fireside Bowl, but it's like stage, bowling alleys, and then there's like this separate room over, where there's just a bar, and he was just sitting at that bar the entire time, and so, but that was an amazing tour. The US tour was awesome. Europe was wild because US Bombs was on that tour, I don't know how familiar you guys are with U.S. bombs, but
Yeah.
Dwayne Peters, I could tell you that I got stories for that tour for days. Dwayne Peters, it's funny because I don't know that they knew that we were a Christian band before the tour started, but they found out pretty fast. And it was a double-decker bus. The bottom part of the bus was just like bench, like diner seats. It was like just bench seats with tables,
Yeah.
And the upstairs was all like 3 high bunks, all the way from the back to the front.
Holy cow.
And so AF was like, they get first pick because it's their tour. They're the headliner. And so they're like, we want the front because the front, I guess, on a bus like that is the safest because if it crashes, the front's the safest for some reason. I don't know. That's what everyone was saying. So we're at the back of the bus. We're at the back. Well, Dwayne Peters is strung out and he's late. He's walking around. Well, so his band gets in and he gets stuck in the back with us, right? And so he's sleeping. He's sleeping on the bottom bunk. I take that back. I was in the middle bunk. The bottom bunk was empty and he was on the very top bunk above me. And we're probably, I don't know, a week in. And I guess I'm from what I remember, their original, not original. I don't know if it was their original. I think it was their original guitar player. He just passed away from cancer, I think. So he was super bummed out about that. He was crying because he missed his girlfriend. And he was just strung out the entire time. Like he was finding drugs wherever he could. Well, I'm sleeping below him. He starts pissing his bunk. It's dripping down. Like I can smell it. So I'm sitting here going, dude, what do I do? I mean, this guy's in his 40s. At this point, I'm maybe 21, I think, This guy's 40 something years old and he's just crying all night long, peeing his bunk. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, do I say something? Like, am I going to be the stupid little Christian, make these guys think I'm just some little rat,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to let this guy just piss all on me every night, and I couldn't sleep. I was already jet lagged because of the time difference. So I go up to one of his band guys. I think it was either Chip or Johnny Two Bags. And I was like, hey man, I go, dude, can you tell this guy to get on the bottom bunk? I was like, because I'm tired. I'm not going to have him peeing all over me, So they moved him down to the bottom bunk, and then he started complaining, oh, these guys and blah, blah, blah. And so it was a mess for a while, but I think it was that tour was a month long. I think it was about halfway through. We played in Spain. I think it was Spain or I think we were in like Portugal or something like that. Well, a lot of the clubs in Europe, they would do like the shows that we play were these Europe's different than the States. That first of all, they take care of you really well. I mean, every club we went to, there was just a full spread of the finest meats and cheeses you can think of. But then after the hardcore shows, everything would turn into a rave, right? Every night. It went from bands are done, and now this club or wherever you're at just turns into a I think we were in Spain. Our next shows were in Germany. And Dwayne Peters was nowhere to be found. And we had a long drive. We had to drive through the night, and he's nowhere to be found. His band members are looking for him. Everyone's looking for him. Finally, the bus just leaves him, right? Just leaves him. So we get to Germany, probably about, 30 minutes before they were supposed to go on. Dwayne shows up with 4 Spanish dudes that he got a ride from. Well, all the dudes in the band were super pissed, and they end up. I felt super bad because, if you know Dwayne Peters, he kind of just does it to himself. But Wade, the bass player, just beat the crap out of him. It was raining. It was pouring down rain. He was super excited because he found the guys. He was lost in Spain. And he comes back and he's just like, I found you. Yeah. And Wade's on like the bus stairs, and Wade's at the top of the stairs getting into the bus, and Dwayne's starting to walk up, and Wade just clocks him in the face, and the dude just fell on the sidewalk, pouring down rain. He threw him like a couple $100 in his passport, and he said, "Go home."
Jeez.
And I'm just sitting there going like, I'm thinking in my head, if someone just did that to me and I'm in Germany somewhere and someone just threw a couple $100, like I felt so bad for the dude. I'm like, for like the whole rest of the tour, I'm like, did Dwayne get home? You know? Like, is he okay, or is he still in Germany? Like, what's going on? You know? And so, um, um, uh, Wade and Johnny and what's the other guitar player's name? Kerry Martinez. They just did vocals for US Bombs the whole rest of the tour. It was just they did the vocals, you know. And so there was, you know, that was that tour. That was a fun tour. That was fun. I almost got in a fight with Vinny Stigma because I'd always mess around with him, and because he's a big Italian guy, you know, he's big Italy. We were in Italy, and they all would, you know, after the shows, we'd usually just go back, chill on the bus, or do our thing, or sightsee, or whatever we wanted to do. And one night they were all drinking, and I'm sitting on the bus, and Vinny Stigma comes on the bus, and he's pretty lit. He's pretty lit up, and I go, "Hey, Vinny," I go, "California wine's better than Italian wine." And he goes, "F you, California." And I go, "No, man." I go, "It's proven, man. California wine's better than Italian wine from Italy. You know, wine from Italy." He's, "F you, California," because they called us California because we were from California, you know. And dude, and like I was just messing with him at first, but he was a little intoxicated, and he started taking it seriously. I'm like, "Oh crap, I'm about ready to fight Vinny Stigma." But they were like, you know, I think Roger or somebody was like, "Hey, chill out, man. He's kidding," you know. But it was fun, man. Like those guys are really good dudes, man. You know, and I think that the way we handled ourselves, you know, a lot of those dudes, you know, they didn't necessarily agree with us, but they respected us. You know, I mean, they saw dudes that were like, "Hey, these guys practice what they preach." You know, like, you know, they're not getting in trouble. They're not doing stupid stuff. They're not, you know, like, and so I think that, and even beyond that, I still talk to Roger, man. Like I keep in touch with Roger on social media and stuff. We chit chat sometimes. I'll send him a DM. He'll post something, and he'll, you know, "How's the fam?" You know, like, so like we've built like really, you know, like kind of, even like Johnny Two Bags. He ended up with like I think it was like a month after we got back from that tour. Dennis Donnell from Social Distortion died, and Johnny Two Bags is now he's been the guitar player with Social Distortion ever since. And so like those, like I keep in touch with that dude. Like I was just messaging him the other day, but you know, so I mean, it's like we kind of you know, we're not like best friends or nothing, but it's cool.
Sure.
You know, like you know, we still kind of keep in touch, and even Chip Hanna, the drummer for US Bombs, he went on and did One Man Army record, super good record. And me and him, we chit chat. He's in Arizona. I have family in Arizona, and he does like country stuff now. And I'm always telling him like, "Oh, I want to come out and check you out," you know. So it was cool, you know. I mean, there was some times where, you know, it was, you know, kind of crazy, but you know, I think for the most part, like we earned the respect of those dudes, you know, and we were where we wanted to be, you know, like we didn't shy away from our beliefs. We didn't, you know, in every chance we could. Like, I mean, there was times where, you know, Jason Moody or me or somebody was sitting alone with one of the dudes, and we'd start talking religion, you know, we start talking about Christianity, we start talking, you know, and they were curious, you know, they were asking questions, you know, and like, well, what about this? And what about that? You know, I remember Roger was, you know, he was writing, I don't know if it was like a memoir or something of him, or Agnostic Front or something, but he was, you know, he'd sit down with me because he knew I was he knew I was like I told him, I was like, I've been going to shows way before any of this, you know, and so he was like, you know, ask me some questions, like, what would you want to know if you were, you know, someone wanting to know like old New York stories. And so I'm like, "Oh, dude, like, here,
cool.
I get to have all that questions, you know, like when I was like, you know, 15, 16 years old, listening to like all this stuff, like, I wonder how that came about, you know. So it was cool, man. Like we really, you know, those guys are really good dudes. You know, I remember Vinny Stigma had this is going to tell you, that was 25 years ago. And I remember Vinny Stigma had his 44th birthday. So that dude's pushing 70, and he's still out there doing it, you know? So, but yeah, it was cool, man. We had, that tour was really fun. Like it was cool to be able to do it. It was cool to go to Europe. That was the first time we'd been to Europe, and we got we got good, we were the opening band, and it was more of a, with US Bombs on the bill, with US Bombs on the bill and AF on the bill and us on the bill, it was kind of a wild, kind of a mixed crowd.
Yeah.
Um, and we would have Christian hardcore kids coming out to the shows. There'd be a handful of them, and thank you so much for coming out. And then there was punk rock kids and hardcore kids in Europe that never even heard of us before. Like you guys are cool. And so it was fun.
Did that, like, because one thing that we've talked a lot about is just generational differences, especially with music. Like, how did you feel being like more of the hardcore band on? Because people categorize like Agnostic Front as a hardcore band now, but like I don't know, did people consider them more of a punk band back then? Like, were you guys did they say something like, oh, this new generation and the heavier music, like they're ruining it or they're changing it? Like how? Because we look at that at the younger generation, it's like, oh yeah, they're all beat down and the punk influence hardcore is gone and changed.
No, I don't think Agnostic Front did. I know Dwayne Peters. I followed him on Instagram for a minute, and he was talking about that tour, and I remember him saying like, there was some Christian band that sounded like death metal, and he was. But I mean, Agnostic Front. I mean, their early stuff, was hardcore. I mean, they're considered the godfathers of hardcore. It doesn't necessarily sound like hardcore.
Right.
Like it wasn't breakdowns and you know. I mean, metal has definitely, if anything, in my opinion, Agnostic Front are the pioneers of that crossover sound. Because that One Voice record. I mean, if you listen to Victim in Pain, and then you listen to One Voice, that's like the pinnacle of, in my opinion, of hardcore and metal crossing over. So they were kind of, Matt Henderson joins the band, they start getting the more, kind of heavier riffs, stuff like that, and then, then that goes to, then Earth Crisis comes out in 1993 or 4, whenever that was, so I mean, you got bands like Judge, who are early, mid 80s, late 80s hardcore bands that had a little bit of heavier, stuff to them. But I mean, as far as like a crossover record, I think One Voice that's the record where it was like, hey, it's okay to play, like as a hardcore band, heavy. Right. I don't think Agnostic Front looked at us like that. Because I mean, we've got. I mean, if you listen to our stuff, I mean, we've got, stuff that sounds like, Sick of It All. Right. We got stuff that sounds like Hatebreed. Like if you listen to No Innocent Victim stuff, I mean, you can hear all the influences from all the songs. Me and Jason Moody were just talking about the Flesh and Blood record, and I mean, if you listen to that record, it's you can hear all kinds of different influences. Whereas if you pick up a Hatebreed record, it's going to be the same formula throughout. Right. Which it's good. I mean, they mastered the formula. But I think we've always, I mean, even like that song Reunion, that's on the Tipping the Scales record. I wrote that song because I just was like, let's just do a punk mashup, like I came from like, a lot of hardcore kids, they bit their teeth on metal stuff. I was more of a Misfits, Descendants, Fear, like Minor Threat, that's the stuff I cut my teeth on when I was 13, 14, 15 years old. Like that's the stuff. I wasn't an Iron Maiden guy. I wasn't a Megadeth guy. I wasn't into Metallica. I wasn't like, to me, that stuff was, I don't know, like I looked at that stuff and it was, I don't know, kind of cheesy to me, I guess you can say, I bit my teeth more on the punk rock side of it. Whereas like, if you were talking to Jason Moody, that guy, he was a big metal guy, Pantera, stuff like that, so, and it was kind of cool. And that's kind of what makes our songwriting, the way it is too, because we have a lot of different, influences on, heavier music or whatever. So my son's playing with a dog, making noises over here.
Oh, it's all good.
And the Dodgers are winning 10-4.
Good.
Top of the ninth.
Yeah.
So they should close that out then for sure. So
I'm hoping Mets got to score 6 runs and 1 out, so I think we're looking pretty good.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as yeah, I mean, as far as like influences and stuff, and the guys from Agnostic Front, I mean, we went on tour with Hatebreed, and that was, those were kind of like, that was a different tour because those were definitely our peers, great dudes, cool guys. That was an interesting tour too because after the shows they're going to strip clubs and we're like, oh, we'll see you in Austin, Texas, like, so like,
Yeah.
but great dudes, super cool guys, man. Those guys were, awesome, but it was, I think what set our band apart is we weren't one of those Christian bands that you didn't know if we were a Christian band or not, like, I know, like when we came up, there was a lot of bands where it's like, oh, we're just Christians in a band, you know, and oh, just listen to our lyrics, and
Yeah.
it's like you listen to the lyrics, and you're like, okay, well, it's just kind of watered down.
Or just
It
said
could,
they wanted to be on a label.
yeah, it could go, it's like you can go either way, bro. And I think the reason God blessed us the way He did and got and put us in situations and environments was because we stood our ground, man. We didn't care, and there wasn't a show that we didn't do on the Agnostic Front tour, on the Hatebreed tour, where Jason didn't say something, like in
Right.
between songs, where it's
Yeah.
like people knew, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think God blessed us for that. And like, I mean, you wouldn't see, I mean, not to knock, name another Christian band that would go on tour with Hatebreed, that would be able to go on tour with Hatebreed.
Yeah.
Even another Christian band that would be able to go on tour and Agnostic Front. And I'm not trying to toot my horn, but I think God knew, like, hey, these guys are going to do what needs to be done with, we were bringing the church to people that wouldn't go to church.
Sure.
And I think that, that's why God really blessed us with a lot of those tours and a lot of the bands we got to play with. And, I mean, we've played with, all of them, Earth Crisis. Earth Crisis was another reason I think Victory. I actually, to be honest with you, we played a show with Earth Crisis in San Diego, and Carl was super pumped on us, and we were telling him like, hey man, put a good word for us in Victory, and I think Carl was one of the words that where it was like, hey man, Carl's fronting for these dudes, so I mean, so and that's just kind of where we, felt we belonged.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to be one of those bands where it's like, well, are they a Christian band or are they not a Christian band? Dodgers did it.
There you go.
So, I think that, I think God blessed us because of it, and I know He did.
Yeah.
I don't think I know,
we,
He put us in a lot of tough situations that I think another Christian band that I want to drop is Focused. So Focused, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Focused.
Mm-hmm.
So those dudes, before I was a Christian and I was going to hardcore shows in California, like going to see Chorus of Disapproval and Strife and all those bands, before I even got saved. Focus was right there. I mean, same with those dudes, probably because they were a hardcore band and there wasn't really any Christian hardcore out at that time. I mean, the only other Christian band that I knew at that time that was doing stuff was maybe the Crucified, but even them, like, they weren't really doing much. But Focused, those dudes were playing with all the hardcore bands, and they're a Christian band, and they're up on stage preaching. I remember going to a Focus show and then like going, huh, Christianity here? Like what? Like, huh? So like same, those dudes, I don't know those dudes super well, but those dudes are kind of right in the mix too, and they were outspoken and they let people know, and you could hear it in their lyrics were definitive of what they believed, and all that stuff, so I think God really blessed us in doing what we do on the hardcore scene and getting us, on shows, on tours, on stuff that He wanted us to be on, because God, God knows it's like, hey, dude, these guys are gonna do it, and we had, on all those tours, we had people coming up to us going like, hey, will you pray with me? Like, hey, will you, hey, I never even thought about this before, and so it was cool, I mean, it was like, okay, this is why we do this. This is what we're here for,
Yeah.
So
And to be completely honest, like when we talked to Tommy Green from Sleeping Giant, we kind of said the same thing. Us as fans, like you see it, you feel it with a lot of these bands, and a big reason why we gravitated towards bands like Sleeping Giant and you guys and some of those other face down bands, because that was the era that like we grew up into, right? Is it was like you felt like people, they were actually walking the walk, right? They weren't just saying it to be on a label. They weren't up there to just because that was the cool thing in like 2006 was
yeah,
to say you were a Christian band, Um, but us as the fans receiving it, like seeing you guys at Furnace Fest, everything that, we heard from you, like, dude, it felt genuine. It feels real. And even if you don't believe it, like you have to respect it,
yeah,
So
yeah.
we,
And I think that I mean, there's times where it's uncomfortable, man. I mean, it's uncomfortable to speak your faith. It's uncomfortable to, even, whatever it is, I mean, it's like, I mean, you can even take straight edge. It's like, oh, you're going to a party and you're not drinking. It's like, well, I'm straight edge, like, it's not, so I mean, there, everybody has to, or you can just not say anything,
yeah,
and not saying anything does nothing for nobody, and so, I can sit here and name bands and people all day long of, stuff that I know about them, and they're saying that they're Christian bands, and but I'm not going to go into that. But yeah, there was a definite era for a minute where I think it was kind of trendy, to
yeah.
be a Christian band. I think that it
That
was,
was our era. Like it was for sure our era. So
yeah, it was trendy. It was comfortable. It was probably comfortable because there was so many of them, and
Yeah.
you can go to a show and it just be stacked with Christian bands, so it was kind of like a thing where it wasn't, it was comfortable. I mean, what's easier to do? Go tell someone that you're a Christian in a church, or tell someone you're a Christian in a, a satanic cult, I mean, or
Right.
whatever it is, I mean, it's and the people who are strong in their faith are still around. The people who aren't, we all kind of know where they're at right
Yeah.
now. I mean, they're doing their thing. I mean, it's not, I mean, I've definitely had my ups and downs in my Christian walk. I mean, I mean, to be completely honest, that's why I wasn't in the band for the To Burn Again record. I mean, I didn't you know lose my faith or anything like that, but the band ended. I just got done doing almost 7 years of the most amazing stuff I've ever done, and then it was done. And I kind of fell into this weird, um, just I don't know if it was confusion, but it was like I was searching for that excitement again, or like, it's like what I'm just Kyle now. Like I
Yeah.
almost felt like my identity was known as Invictum. So I was super kind of confused. It was a really weird time in my life. I was like I said, I wasn't doing anything crazy. I was going to some bars. I was having some drinks. I was doing stuff that got back to certain people where it's like, so when the band did want to get back together, they were like, should Kyle be in it? And they had to make that, the phone call, the uncomfortable phone call, and I was cool with it. Like the only thing that it hurt, and I felt, it was weird. But looking back now, me and Moody had a long talk about this. We met up before practice, before Furnace Fest, and we had a talk about it. Now that we're adults and we're more mature and we know how to handle stuff. We're not just young kids just doing stupid things. Um, and he apologized to me. He's like, hey man, like we probably didn't go about that the wrong way. Or hey man, we probably should. If we were hearing this stuff about you, we probably should have, you know, talk to you about it instead of just like cutting you out, like, and I was like, I probably shouldn't have been doing this stuff, and we just buried the hatchet. Then I told him I'm still mad because To Burn Again, I think, is the best known as a victim record that they put out. I wasn't on it, so I mean, it was, but it was good, and then, but looking back, I would have not been where I'm at today. I probably would have not found, married my wife. I wouldn't, like everything worked out perfect in God's planning,
Yeah.
all the way around. So it was a bummer at the beginning, but everything worked out the way it should have, so it sucked at the time and I wasn't in a good place, but it got me back to where I needed to be, and so it all worked out. But that's why I wasn't on to Burn Again. I was doing stupid things. Like I said,
So
I wasn't like, hail Satan or anything like that, but it was kind of just a weird spot in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just,
We completely understand.
yeah.
Yep.
totally. So I was just with Tommy on Tuesday or Wednesday, and he said that you have a nickname around the IE. Is it Big Daddy, Big Poppy, Big Daddy,
Daddy.
Big
Yep.
Daddy?
Yep.
And yeah, so he said that he was specifically super grateful. He's like, forever, Kyle will always be the homie because you had a big impact on his wife, Chrissy, growing up and everything like that. And so, like, I wanted to ask you because I was flipping through your Instagram, I was looking at a few things, and you had a post with a guy. Is his name Steve? Maybe
Steve Mason.
and you commented or your post said something about this is the guy who brought us in. This is the guy who introduced us to Christianity and biblical passages and like the foundation for what we are currently living by, kind of thing.
So that's Tim. That's Tim's dad. That's our guitar player's dad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's Tim. So Steve Mason, that's Tim's dad. Tim, the guitar player, that's his dad. He was the pastor at Oasis Church. Yeah.
So prior to this, then, well, what led you to essentially going in 35 years ago at this point and starting your faith journey?
So, I was a hardcore punk rock kid. Me and my friends were, my parent, I came from a broken home, just the whole typical story. Met a guy at school in junior high school named Dave Foy. He was into kind of metal stuff. He was like Iron Maiden guy. He had a Testament shirt and stuff, and I was kind of more like my first love of music is hip hop. Like I was a big rap dude. Like junior high, like I probably from like elementary school, right, fifth, sixth grade. Like I was listening to like I loved hip hop. Like I was the only white kid that was just a huge hip hop guy. Like I loved it. I still love it, and so I was kind of running with, that kind of crowd. Parents split up when I was 12. It's kind of a troublemaker. Anyways, long story short, met Dave Foy. He was into the kind of more metal, punk, hardcore stuff. Me and him became good friends. He started turning me onto it. He came from a pretty bad broken home too. His dad just up and left his family. His mom was an alcoholic. She was in rehab. He was living with his aunt. He was living with his aunt in Grand Terrace, which is a city that's a couple cities over from where we live. And his aunt was a Christian, and she went to Oasis. She went to Steve's church, and her only rule with him was if he was staying there is that he has to go to church with her. And so he's like, hey, I have to go to church, dude. Let's go. Like, you're coming with me, And I was like, really, bro? I was like, oh, like, okay, okay. So, we were going to church, didn't have any, I wasn't listening. We were probably doing something the entire time. Well, we would go every Sunday, and it turns into, we went to they had a youth retreat or something like that up in the mountains. Tons of cute girls there. What keeps every guy going to church at first, but I started meeting people. There, and then we started inviting some more of our friends that were like kind of like hardcore kids, because we were going to shows. I mean, we were going to shows young. We were going to, Spanky's in Riverside, which is pre-Showcase Theater in Corona, which is, those were like the two in our area, in like the Inland Empire where we live. It was Spanky's and Showcase. That's where you went and saw bands play. So, we were going to shows and then we were going to church. And so we kind of were like in both worlds, but started building more relationships with kind of some of the other kids in the youth group that weren't necessarily like in the scene we were in, and kind of started becoming friends with a lot of these kids, and some of them were like pastors' kids. Some of them were, just kids whose parents went there too. But we kind of just like, hey, this is kind of fun, like we were messing around a lot, like we were being punk kids still. Like I remember one time we were planning on beating up the youth pastor. We went to some pumpkin patch or something, and me and my friends were like, hey dude, let's go beat the youth pastor up. That'd be funny. And then there was another youth leader there who was this like kind of like bigger dude, and we're like, we all kind of looked at each other, was like, dude, if we beat him up, dude, he's gonna get involved and we're probably gonna get smacked, like so like, just stupid stuff. I mean, we were unruly kids, and kind of like, now we're in high school, a couple years had gone by. We would stop going, we would go back. I think Dave's mom got out of rehab. He ended up moving to another city with her because she was trying to get him back. And, during that time, we're still doing stuff. I remember, we were the kids that were like popping safety pins through our nose and tattooing each other with like a little pin and string and tattooing each other. And, like, that's just the kind of kids we were. Parents were, I tell my kids all the time, like, dude, you guys are soft, man. Don't get me wrong, but you got, the stuff that I was doing at your age, like you would be surprised, So we just kind of, we kept going back, and there was a really good, youth pastor that was very charismatic, and one by one, man, our friends just started getting saved, and one day I just did it, man, and we were still those punk kids, but I mean, I would say the first year or two I got saved, I still was, I was young. I didn't, like I was trying to do good, I mean, I got kicked out of high school for a guy putting a gun in my head on campus. Like I was kind of that kid. It was very violent. Like everything was very violent. We would have, my school, we would start riots, and I mean, it was crazy. We were like these crazy punk skinhead, hardcore, we had our crews and we fought other crews, and it was, it was pretty wild, and that happened. That happened. I got a gun put to my head and got kicked out of school. And I remember going to church and just being like, I'm done with this. This is stupid, and what am I doing? I didn't think I was going to live to be 30. I mean, I was just that kind of kid, none of us, we were just, it was live fast, die young. We didn't care. It was stupid. We're going to shows, getting in fights, I mean, there's a pretty famous chorus of disapproval. It was chorus of disapproval. I think it was Ignite's very first show. It was with their first singer, Ignite's first singer. It was at a club called the 8.5 Club, and me and my friends, we called ourselves Tri-City Hardcore. Well, I guess there was some Nazi group from Huntington Beach that called themselves Tri-City Hardcore, and so we were in the pit. We're at a hardcore show, and we were saying Tri-City Hardcore or something. Well, all these Orange County dudes thought we were the Nazi skinhead guys from Huntington Beach, so they started fighting us, and then it turned into this huge full-blown riot. I mean, it was just really violent, like we were the tough guys, and that's what we did. That's how we, did our stuff. And I think I literally just kind of was like, this isn't the life I want, and became a Christian. And like I said, the first couple of years, we were still not really getting in fights or anything. We just still doing stupid stuff. And then I think it finally was just like, you know what, like it finally was just like, boom, like it was there, and I was like, all right, and it literally like overnight, man, I stopped cussing. I stopped, like, it was funny. Me and my friend Dave, the guy who was, he actually was a singer. So then we started a Christian hardcore band called Ultra Mission, and that was going to keep us accountable. and we're going to do this, and all this stuff. And we started having those shows at Oasis. I mean, if you talk to anybody from this area, the shows at Oasis, like Sleeping Giant played, it was Steve Mason, Tim's dad. He was the pastor of the church, and he was super awesome about taking these kids that he knew were just rough and just not really letting us do whatever we wanted, but just giving us a venue and a place to like a safe place to do stuff. And the shows and the lives that got saved out of those shows, and the bands, the people like Eric Gregson, guitar player for Sleeping Giant and Death Star. He sang for Death Star. He came from that whole scene. Like he was a Redlands kid. And all these kids, we were just kind of like plucking them. We would go down, we would walk downtown, and we'd just see some kids with a mohawk and be like, "Yo, man, come over here, let's talk to you." And we talk to them, and yeah, we're going to church over here, and they come to the youth group, and and it was super cool, and it was probably pretty dysfunctional, like I said, because we were all still young, we were still young Christians,
Yeah.
and we were wild. There were some crazy stories that came out of that too, man. I mean, a lot of crazy stuff, but it was real, and I think that the realness of it is what, when you go through stuff like that, it's different. It's not like, and I'm not trying to dog anybody that didn't come from a situation like that. Everyone's got their testimony, and everyone's got their, to me, I think the best testimony in the world is like, I never did any of that stuff, like there's people that get up there and like, I was a drug user for 20 years and I almost died. And everyone's like, oh, it's such an awesome testimony. I'm sitting here going, dude, I hear guys that are like, I've never done anything before, and God's been in my life. And I'm like, dude, like, that's cool. It's like, I don't know how you did that, bro. You should be exempt from taxes or something, So, I mean, and so it was a time that it was special, like it was super cool, like it was a place where punk kids, and that in the mid 90s, late 90s, it was different than now, like I think that like kids didn't have a lot of places for outlets. And I mean, actually they don't really have them now either, but I don't know. It was a perfect storm for the time in the area, because the area that we lived in already had a bunch of like punk rock kids, and it was getting pretty big back then, like, I mean, with the whole, you can walk down the street and there's somebody, even if they're wearing a Nirvana shirt, they're into kind of somewhat heavy music.
Yeah.
Derek Youngsma, the drummer for Bleeding Through, plays for Bleeding Through now. He was the drummer in my first band. And when we first met him, he was like 14 years old wearing a Nirvana shirt. And we heard he could play drums. We're like, hey, dude, you want to be in our band? He's just looking at us like, oh, like, you're probably like 3 or 4 years older than him, and he's just like, like, what? You want? We're like, yeah, man, we heard you play drums. Dude, you think you play the drums? It's not hard. It's hardcore, dude. It's like, just get out there and bang the drums. He's like, okay. And he was like, he did it, like, it was good. And he went from wearing a Nirvana shirt to wearing a, Sick of It All shirt in 2 weeks, and it was just like, it was a really cool time and era to start something like that.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, I mean, a lot of those people, I don't know where they're at now today. I still have people that come to me and like, around town, like, yo, didn't you used to be the one that did those shows at Oasis? I'm like, yeah. He's like, dude, I used to love those shows, like, stuff like that, and because it was the perfect room, perfect stage, perfect room, held probably like 250 people, perfect height stage. The church was like, use the PA, we're just like, I remember sitting there, we did not do anything, like, I barely even knew how to play. I still don't know how to plug my bass in. I had all kinds of problems at Furnace Fest, but I got up on stage and my battery was dead in my bass. But, we were just, it was for kids by kids.
Yeah.
And Steve just let us take the reins, towards the end, there got to be a little bit of red tape. There was one show where some dude put his head through the drywall, And we didn't have any money to fix it because we didn't charge. I think all the Oasis shows were $2 or 2 cans of food to get in. And a lot of the times that $2, like if No Innocent Victim drove up from San Diego, or like an Orange County band drove from Orange County, because we're about an hour and a half from San Diego, probably an hour from Orange County. Back then, when there was no traffic, now it's like 3 hours anywhere you go. But so all that money would just go to help them pay for gas or whatever to get to the show, And we didn't make any money. It was nothing, If we had shirts to sell or something, we would sell some shirts, make a little bit of dough or whatever. But so after a while, when things started getting wear and tear, they were kind of like, well, you guys need to have a couple adult chaperones at these shows. And we're just kind of like, okay. So we would like find like people that were like barely adults, like you come babysit us tonight, and still kind of just run amok, and then it kind of died off for a minute. And then the church actually renovated the downstairs basement, and that's where they started. Like a lot of it, like by the time Sleeping Giant got to start playing, like Death Star, those guys, that was more down in the basement, and that wasn't as cool because it was a smaller stage, because it was like an 8-foot ceiling.
Yeah.
Like the room we used to do it in was like a big open like warehouse ceiling, But a lot of cool things came out of that, man. It was really fun to kind of grow up in that. Like even friends now that I have, like some of my best friends that I have now that we go on my family vacations with and stuff. Like, well, I remember going to your shows, and I'm like, I don't remember you, but like people that I'm friends with now, like yeah, dude, I remember going to see Altered Mission play at Oasis when I was like 13 years old, So it was fun, man. It was really cool. And Steve Mason, that dude's awesome, man. He was like my second dad, super good dude.
It's interesting. We've said this a lot. I mean, we've been fortunate enough with this dumb podcast that we do to talk to like some really cool people, right? From all across the country. Like, we talked to Jay Ost from With Honor. We got to talk to this band from Texas, this guy Rob from Will to Live.
Okay.
And it's just funny how similar all of our stories are.
Yeah.
Because like hearing you talk about, by kids, for kids. I mean, we grew up doing park shows and, no adults. And just the same feeling too of like, growing up in Utah, it's, very religious. And we found this kind of outlet, and you're still finding yourself, but it gave me like a healthy space to like get anger and aggression out, but also, to listen to bands like you guys and Sleeping Giant that like said stuff that I believe in, and it's just really cool to see that like this large community that we're all connected to and share these stories. And I don't know, it's in a weird way, it's kind of comforting.
It's really true, man. I mean, it's a small world. Like, I mean, I didn't meet Tommy in California. I met Tommy when he was living in Salt Lake, when he was with his first wife, Shannon, and they both weren't Christians, and we would go play Salt Lake, and they would I don't even know how actually I do know how, because our friend Jeannie moved up there, and when we went up there, she was friends with Shannon. So that's how we met them. But they were like, they opened up their house to us, and they weren't, and so we met Tommy and we met Shannon, and we would every time we played Salt Lake, we'd stay at their house. It's funny. I was just talking to Tommy the other day, and I said, hey, dude, if I would have told you back in 1998, 99, that you were going to be a Christian, singing in a Christian hardcore band, and the dude from Korn was playing guitar with you, like, would you believe me? And he started laughing. He's like, nope.
Yeah.
I was like, I wouldn't believe me either, man, but it's super cool, like.
Yeah.
But it's funny, man. It makes it a super small world. I had a vintage furniture business for a minute, and I was, on Instagram and stuff, and, in that business, other dealers, talk to other dealers, and, there's a dealer in Minnesota, and, I forgot how I think I posted something, and I put some music on, a story or something. I don't know. He goes, "Oh, but you like that band?" And I was like, "Yeah, He's like, "Oh, I saw them play." I was like, "Oh, really?" And we started talking about, and I told him I was. He goes, where are you from? I go, California, and ended up telling him, I played bass for Nelson. He's like, no way, man. He goes, I saw you guys play every time you went to Minnesota. And I was like, it's a whole different platform, but I mean, it's just like walking down the street and seeing somebody with a band t-shirt and you feel like them and you feel like you're instantly connected. It's like, I remember I was at one of my kids' baseball games the other day and some dude rolls up on the other team and he's wearing a Hatebreed sweatshirt. And I'm looking at him like, I have to know this guy. Like, who's this dude with a Hatebreed sweatshirt? Like, I'm the only one here that knows Hatebreed, not, or like if I don't know who you are, like I have to know who you are, and so then of course you have to go to and be like, hey man, nice sweatshirt, and like, it's just like, it's just it's a small community, I mean, it's like, whatever it is, like you just feel like everyone should know everyone, and they kind of do, I mean, it's, even if you don't know them, it's like once you see another person wearing a band t-shirt that you're into, it's like, boom, you automatically have, whereas like if somebody's walking around with a Taylor Swift shirt on or something, it's like, you don't care, it's like every teenage girl in the world, it's like, so it's that's what makes it cool, that's what makes it fun. That's what connects everybody, and I'm super blessed. I was telling me and Jason Moody were talking, me and Jason would meet up before practices and spend some time together. And I was like, dude, it's just, I feel so blessed that I got to do what I got to do, like it's, the stuff that God let us do and the stories and the people and just being able to, a lot of people don't get to do that, like that's just super cool, like, and it's like, I'm humbled, like that God chose me to be a part of that, and it's just super humbling, I mean, had I not done this, and this, like, no, it's just one little thing, like, I tell my kids all the time, like, do one bad decision or one good decision changes the complete trajectory, and they're my middle boy just graduated high school. My youngest son is just started high school, and he plays baseball, and one of the kids on the baseball team found a knife on campus. I was like a kitchen knife or something. I don't know why it was on campus before school. Well, he picks it up, and my son and all his buddies, the baseball kids, are like, dude, put it down, put it down, put it down. Kid picks it up, and he's like kind of like fake stabbing people around it. And he's on the baseball team and everything. I mean, all this stuff. School finds out, dude, the kid gets expelled.
Yeah.
He didn't bring the knife to school to try to stab somebody. He found it on, and I told my son, I said, see, I said, one small, thing, or one good decision can, you just have to be, you have to be smart, and I don't know if that has anything to do with me being in the band, but
no, it is. It's interesting. It's crazy, right? So
it's my dad life coming out. And
listen,
about it.
You're talking to two dads here. Like when you were throwing shade at T Swift, like my oldest daughter would probably hate you right now, kind of thing. So,
I don't have anything against Taylor Swift. I couldn't name one of her songs, to be honest with you, but I was just it was just complete reference. I have no problem with her whatsoever. I don't care.
I'm just kidding. It's all good. But I give her enough crap as is for being a T Swift fan. And the funny thing is, it was Kyle's wife who made my daughter her sweaters. So, it's all good. It all comes around. But dude, seriously, we could probably talk to you for another like 2-3 hours kind of thing and just talk about all of your guys' history and what you guys have gone through and stuff like that. We love this stuff. But we won't keep you and we won't bore everyone for too much longer here. But you guys have 2 shows coming up.
Yep.
You're playing in November. So it's a Friday and a Saturday.
Friday, Saturday.
So Friday, you got Dynasty in Darasum and Cake Eater, I believe.
Yep.
And then Saturday, you got Darasum, No Luck, and Purest Bond.
Yep.
So is this just the last hurrah for a minute, or what's kind of the plan going forward throughout the rest of this year, beginning of next year?
So we didn't really know what was going to happen. We knew we were going to do Furnace Fest. Like I said, we're all kind of separate lives, separate, now that Jim's playing drums with us, he lives all the way up in Fresno. got together, did some practices, and obviously when we announced when we were doing Furnace Fest, everyone's like California shows, Texas shows, Salt Lake show, like everyone's kind of throwing their, like come out to North Carolina, whatever. And so we kind of were just talking, and we kind of wanted to see where everyone was at, and decided to do the California shows. And I wanted those shows. I booked those shows specifically because I wanted them to be, Dynasty is the only other Christian band that's on those things. I booked those, and I really wanted it to be like shows. Like if we were still playing today, these would be the bands we would be playing. They're all, besides Dynasty's somewhat active. They just played that Holy Name show. I don't know how much more they do beyond that these days, but Darrisum's a good local band that does a lot of stuff. Cake Eater's a new band that's kind of coming out. They're really good. I think there's one of the guys from Officer Negative plays in that band. But they're an Orange County band. They've got some traction. The name kind of sounds to me, the names kind of throws a little bit, but they're good. It doesn't, and then Darrisum's playing with us in San Diego too. Gabe's a great dude. He runs a couple like good Instagram accounts, Past Once Nourished, features old flyers, and he's real involved in the hardcore scene and stuff like that. And I wanted to put them on both shows. And then No Luck is a good, just kind of tough guy hardcore band from San Diego. And Purist Bond, there's I don't know too much about them. There was this band from San Diego that I really liked. They're called Hereditary, and I was trying to get them. Have you guys heard of that band?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was trying to get them on and reached out to them. I guess they're going through some drummer issues or something like that. And so they go, well, we play in another band called Purist Bond. We're more metalcore, which I don't mind. I listen to them. They're pretty good. So that's how they got on. And then beyond that, 2025, we definitely want to do. So there's some stuff coming up. A couple of other fests that have hit us up to play. 2025. Nothing is locked in yet, but we're definitely planning on playing some stuff. Those guys from Pain of Truth, they hit me up. They're doing that. We just went and saw them play last weekend out in LA, and they're coming back out in March. They're so I think it's a support tour for them, so they don't really know, but they're going to try to get their booking guide to try to maybe get us on like some of the California shows with them.
Cool.
So that would be rad if that happens. So we're just everything's kind of up in there. I know for sure, like if we do get back together and we do continue to do stuff, like our thing was even back in 2002 when we disbanded, and we were like, we're not doing any reunion stuff, blah, 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 blah. I think though, like when they got back together and they actually wrote a new record, you get back together, you got to write new music, then it's not cheesy. If you're going to put out new music, go for it. You know what I'm saying? So I think we're talking about getting together. It's kind of hard, but with technology now, it's not as hard, but possibly putting out like some new stuff. Nothing has been written yet. We actually, when we did that show in 2018, we got together, we were writing stuff, and Jason Moody actually got in a really bad motorcycle accident and broke his hip, and he was bedridden for like 6 months.
Oh, dang.
He got back from that, and then COVID hit. And so everything just kind of fizzled, and we all just kind of went back with our lives, and we didn't really talk again until now. So I think that future California shows for sure, these two California shows coming up, and 2025, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think, as long as, God still wants us to do it, and if there's a platform and people are still interested, then these old guys aren't done yet.
Well, if Furnace Fest was any indication, there is still a platform for you guys. And we will definitely try to catch you guys. If you're ever anywhere within the vicinity, we will definitely be coming out to see you guys for sure.
If they book it, we will come.
There we go. There we go. You heard it here first. So, but for real, super excited for you guys. It was incredible to see you. We've listened to you guys for, oh man, I don't even know how long. Probably since 2004, give or take in that range. IE is popping off right now. Darasum is like one of my favorite bands right now. I was just introduced to him by a few months ago by Brandon Heatley, who's in the band Slumped out of IE as well. And they're incredible. So seeing them on both of those shows, I was pumped for that. So
yeah, the Inland Empire, man, is always, I mean, even since like the early days, I mean, there was like when I first started getting into hardcore, man, the Inland Empire has always banged out some, it always gets overlooked. Hardcore in California is Orange County. Like, it's Orange County, all the, 18 Visions, Throwdown, Ignite, court, it's always been Orange County.
yeah.
IE, you come out here, we put out some good bands, but we're dangerous. Like they got a little bit of thug in them. Like it's funny. I was just telling the Pain of Truth guys at the show in LA. They're like, well, we're playing LA tonight, and we're playing Orange County tomorrow night. Like, is it going to be good? Like, is it? I was like, you don't understand California, bro. LA has its own scene. Orange County has its own scene. IE has its own scene. San Diego has its own scene. Like, it's different. Like, you could literally play a show in LA and then play Orange County the next night, and it's a completely different crowd.
Right.
Completely different crowd. It's California is weird that way, but yeah, the IE puts out some bangers, man.
Oh, it's crazy. There's a new one called Badmouth right now. They've just dropped 2 singles. Mm-hmm. Just in your face hardcore, really dope stuff. So IE solid. I'm a big fan of what's coming out.
I don't know a ton of the bands that are out right now. To be honest with you, I haven't really. I mean, there's some that I listen to. The Hated, they actually covered one of our songs. Darasum, but yeah, I follow some Instagram stuff, and I see it's a lot of young kids, man, and they're they wild out. I watched some of the videos. It's like all the crowd killing and stuff, and they're just throwing chairs and tables and stuff and mosh pits and stuff. And I'm just like, these guys are crazy, man. Yeah. So, well, cool, man.
Well, seriously, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for jumping on with us. If you ever want to come back, message us. Like, we're happy to have you any point. So
let me know. We could talk about all the other stuff for 2 hours.
Oh, for real, dude. We are totally down for that. But we'll tag all the social medias and stuff. But if you're in the California area, definitely go check out No Innocent Victim. November 22nd at Chain Reaction. November 23rd at Brick by Brick. Go catch those. And yeah, man, seriously appreciate it. But we'll catch you guys later.
It was my first podcast. I loved it. It was awesome.
You did good, man.
Now I'm going to start listening to them.
You're going to get roped back in. So cool. All right, man. Peace.
Take it easy, man.